Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the INSS English podcast. We dedicate the program today to discuss the current alarming rise of violence in the West Bank, vicious terrorist attacks from both sides, turned against Jewish and Palestinian population. Here's a quick summary of the events. Currently, Israel is at a peak of security tension after 2 rockets were launched towards Israeli territory from the northern part of the West Bank. Both were a failed launch. And after IDF sent 2 more battalions to the area following a series of Jewish settler violent attacks against Palestinian population. In the past days, hundreds of settlers stormed in Palestinian towns and villages, setting homes and cars on fire, and even opening fire in some cases. 1 Palestinian was killed last Wednesday in unclear circumstances. These attacks were defined by both Israeli Chief of Staff, head of the security authority, and General Chief of Police as, quote, nationalistic terror, stating that the military would divert and increase forces with the mission of preventing these attacks. Prior to these events, and for the first time in 17 years, an IDF drone struck from the air a car carrying terror cell near Jenin. This action came a day after 4 Israelis were shot dead and 4 were wounded in a terror attack committed by 2 Hamas terrorists at a gas station close to the settlement of Eli. This attack came, according to the Palestinians, as a reaction to the IDF raid in Nablus, during which 7 Palestinians were killed, including 2 teens and 8 soldiers injured by a large bomb and in a clash with Palestinian gunmen. This complicated chain of events is in the West Bank affected, of course, also the political system in Israel. Ministers in Netanyahu's coalition, like Minister Ben-Gvir, urged the government to decide upon severe military actions, what he called as, quote, Operation Protecting Shield Number 2, and also urged Jewish settler youth to, quote, run to the hills after the terror attack in Eli. Also, Minister Strouk referred to the events and called the heads of IDF, intelligence, and police as none less than Wagner Group, a so-called rebel, as she sees it, against the Israeli government. Much on the table today in our podcast. We will try and analyze these events and ask, where is Israel headed? And what will be the right move to stop this violent escalation? Escalation of violence in the West Bank, a slippery slope. We begin right after this. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adi Kantor, and joining me today is Professor Kobi Michael, senior researcher at INSS and editor-in-chief of the Strategic Assessment. Professor Michael served as the Deputy Director General and head of Palestinian Desk at the Ministry for Strategic Affairs. Hello, Kobi. Thank you very much for joining me today in this talk.
Hello, Adi. My pleasure.
Kobi, so much on the agenda in our talk today. I think maybe the right first question would be first to ask, what are the main reasons, as you see it, the main reasons for the current escalation in the West Bank? Why is it happening and why now?
In order to understand what is happening now on the ground, we have to go back to March 22, actually the beginning of the terror campaign. That was retaliated by Israel, at least initially, since May 22, with the operation that lasts since then till these days. Now, at the end of the day, what was found is that Jenin and the northern districts of the West Bank became to be a sort of a hornet nest with regard to terrorism, actually greenhouses of terrorism, where the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which used to be not a marginal Palestinian terror organization, but a small Palestinian terror organization, became to be the center of gravity of terrorism in the northern districts of the West Bank, mainly the Jenin district. And the Israeli operation, the Israeli continuing operations in these areas actually resulted with very impressive tactical and operational achievements, where Many terrorists were killed, thousands were captured, arrested, and many terror attacks were prevented. But at the end of the day, when we look at the curve of the terrorism since May 22, the beginning of the current operation, till today, we see a very linear increase in the number of casualties, in the number of the terror attacks, in the number of the Palestinians who participate and operating terrorism, in the quality of the weapons and the methods which are used by the Palestinian terrorists, and so on and so forth. So the conclusion is that the military modus operandi, which is used for more than a year, does not create the strategic impact. There is a gap between the operational achievement, the tactical achievement, and the required strategic impact. And the event that you have mentioned in the beginning with the rocket launching, this is not the first time, by the way, that rockets are launched from the West Bank, and even not from Jenin area. And it doesn't matter that it was a technical failure. Okay, it is important that
the intention was clear.
Yeah. Yes, not only the intention, but the impact. Okay, the cognitive impact that Hamas or the Palestinians succeeded to create, not only vis-a-vis the Israeli public, but vis-a-vis the Palestinian public as well. This is something that encourages the Palestinians. This is something that signals that there is an horizon, that we can, yes, we can, okay, against the IDF, the mighty force in the Middle East. So we can tackle it, and this is something that fuels the Palestinian ethos, the Palestinian resistance ethos. This is something that increases the motivation of the Palestinians to continue participating and acting and perpetuating terrorism and so on and so forth. And in the very same time, this is something that weakens dramatically the Palestinian Authority that is weakened already, okay? Right. It's very weak already. And at the end of the day, I think that this is something that signals that there is a change in I would say, the rules of the game, at least from the perception of Hamas or the perception of the Palestinian terror organizations in the Palestinian territories. And we are in a situation where there is a very dangerous combination of, I would say, interests between the Palestinian terror organizations, mainly the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is fully supported by the Iranians, and Hamas, which is also supported by the Iranians, but has an interest of itself with regard to the Palestinian arena. Hamas, we have to remember that Hamas perceives itself as a replacement for the Palestinian Authority, a replacement for Fatah. And they are looking forward in order to deteriorate the stability of the Palestinian Authority and to enter to the shoes of the Palestinian Authority and to gain a full control over the entire Palestinian system, the Palestinian Authority and the PLO together. And
just a quick question here, because I have a question regarding to what you just said. The question, I think, is timing, because we see what you discussed now regarding the strategy of Hamas. What exactly is the strategy? Because we really see them trying to, on the one hand, definitely support the West Bank and support the actions against Israeli IDF. On the other hand, they're not fully in the game right now. The aspiration is clear: unite the fronts. Where are they located at the moment? Are they in? Are they out?
They are fully in, and we have.
I mean, Hamas Gaza, with the Gaza Strip.
Hamas, generally speaking, okay. first of all, we have to remember that when we talk about Hamas, although Hamas is much more organized and much more disciplined than Fatah, we are not talking about a monolithic entity, okay? There are differences between the different leaders of Hamas, between the inside and the outside, between Gaza and the West Bank, between Yahya Sinwar and Salah al-Arouri. But at the end of the day, they have a common strategic goal. And the common strategic goal is to first to control the Palestinian system, the Palestinian Authority, to move away, to remove Fatah, okay, and then to establish their capacities to the right timing that will enable them, together with some other regional players,
unite all the fronts.
To destroy the state of Israel and to establish the Palestinian state from the river to the sea as part of the Islamic Caliphate that will be from Marrakesh to Bangladesh. Okay, this is the grand vision that they have, and they think in terms of centuries, not in terms of years. And they believe that exactly like the Crusaders, Israel will continue existing here for maybe some more decades, but at the end of the day, after some decades, after 100 years, Israel will disappear, okay? This is the way that they think about, and they are very, very devoted in this regard to their grand vision. Now, generally speaking, their strategy is the strategy of the unification of the fronts. They are actually operating and they are working in order to strengthen and to build 5 active fronts against Israel that will be operated in the D-Day simultaneously against Israel, and then they will be able to actually destroy the state of Israel. And the fronts are the Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, the West Bank, South Lebanon, and the domestic arena in Israel, meaning the Arab citizens of
Israeli
Israel.
Arabs.
And now they understand that the center of gravity is the Gaza Strip. Okay, this is the center of gravity because this is the center location of Hamas. The Gaza Strip is the most essential strategic asset that they have. In the Gaza Strip, they have the most essential and significant military force, and therefore they have to preserve, to keep, to guard, to defend the Gaza Strip, and they have to use the Gaza Strip as, I would say, the departure point for the big campaign. And this is the reason that they distinguish, they differentiate between the Gaza Strip and the other fronts, mainly the West Bank. And they are making all the efforts in order to keep calm in the Gaza Strip that will enable them to improve the humanitarian and the economic situation in the Gaza Strip. And
at the same time,
under these circumstances, to strengthen and to fortify their military capacities, to rebuild and to improve their military capacities in the Gaza Strip, to prepare the Gaza Strip for the D-Day, and in the very same time, okay, to initiate, to organize, to encourage terror attacks from the West Bank, and to build their terror infrastructure in the West Bank. And of course, that meanwhile, they are cooperating with Hezbollah, which is an Iranian proxy, of course, in order to build capacities in South Lebanon. And we saw in the last operation and in May 21 that they use these capacities from South Lebanon. And of course, East Jerusalem, which is the generator for escalation,
of course.
This is actually the explosive barrel that they use in order to bring all the fronts together. And the last front is the domestic front inside the state of Israel, the Arab citizens of Israel. And here we have to remember.
May 2021, what happened in the Guardian of the Walls.
Yes, you are right. But in the very same time, 95 or even more than that % of the Arab population of Israel, they have no interest to be involved in terrorism. Okay, they are in a sort of an Israelization process. They want to be embedded into the Israeli economy, into the Israeli society. But we are talking about the law of big numbers, and if we have 2 million Arab citizens in Israel, it is enough to have only 1%, okay, and even less than 1% that will be ready to join Hamas, okay, and to establish terror infrastructures inside the state of Israel and to operate them. We are talking about some thousands.
Chaos, yeah, okay? Understood.
And here the numbers, the quantity becomes to be a quality. So in order to summarize, I would say that this is the strategy of Hamas, and unfortunately, I think that Israel, with the current strategy which is used by Israel, creates a sort of a comfort zone for Hamas to continue, okay, realizing this strategy, to continue differentiating between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
Because we, from our side, also would like to differentiate between these two areas. It's also of an interest to the Israeli security system.
Because we want, first of all, to have calm in the Gaza Strip and in the envelope of the Gaza Strip. And we are working together with the Egyptians and with the Qatarians in order to enlarge the calm agreements with Hamas.
Kobi, by the way, how much are the Egyptians involved in negotiations with what's happening right now in the West Bank? We know their role in what happened till now with the Gaza Strip and the operations that took place there. But with regards to the West Bank and the relations with Egypt, how is it looking like?
Egypt is deeply involved, mainly with regard to the Gaza Strip. They have direct interests there, which are related to security issues and political issues in Egypt itself. But they have some additional interests with regard to their regional position and their position and relations vis-a-vis the United States of America, and of course the relations that they have with Israel, the strategic security and intelligence cooperation, which is in the highest level since the peace treaty, the peace agreement was signed in 1979.
Yes, and I would add also, especially after the events that took place 3 weeks ago in the borders between Israel and Egypt. So it's very sensitive right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, the Egyptians have an interest to strengthen the Palestinian Authority, and they prefer that the Palestinian Authority will return to the Gaza Strip and will control effectively the Gaza Strip. But they understand pretty well that these are illusions. Okay? It will not be realized, and therefore they are doing their best efforts in order at least to strengthen the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And therefore, they have an interest in the West Bank as well, but they are much less influential in the West Bank in comparison to their influence in the Gaza Strip.
Of course, also because of geographical reasons. They don't share a border.
Geographical reasons, and secondly, in the West Bank there are some other players, and the situation is much more complicated. We have Jordan, okay, with each interest mainly in East Jerusalem, Haram Sharif, the Temple Mount. So things are more complicated. It's much easier for them to deal with the Gaza Strip, and they are more influential there in the Gaza Strip. But with your permission, I would like to add a sort of a clarification with regard to the things that I have said about Hamas strategy and the idea of the unification
of the fronts.
The fronts. This strategy is something that goes together with the Iranian strategy, which is based on the same rationale. Okay, the Iranians for several years, more than a decade, work pretty hard in order to establish 5 active fronts against Israel as, I would say, a very significant, essential component in their regional strategy and in their deterrence equation vis-a-vis Israel. The most important thing that the Iranians would like to prevent from Israel to do is to attack the nuclear infrastructures on the Iranian soil. And they understand that they, from the pure military point of view, they are, I would say, in a sort of imbalance, negative imbalance vis-a-vis Israel. So they invented the idea of the fronts that surround the state of Israel. And the idea is...
And the proxies, of course, via proxies. Yeah.
Of course, the idea is to use the proxies. In South Lebanon, Hezbollah; in Syria, Hezbollah and some other Shiite militias; in Iraq, the Shiite militias; in Yemen, the Houthis; and the Palestinian Authority is the fifth front. And here they have two proxies, which are different, okay? The Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is a pure Iranian proxy, fully dependent on the Iranians. And the other one is Hamas, which is also a sort of an Iranian proxy, but in a different manner. Hamas is a much bigger organization. It's not only a terror organization, it's also a political entity. And they are less dependent on the Iranians. They can live even without the Iranians, but they have, I would say, a sort of very fruitful cooperation with the Iranians. And in this regard, the strategy or the front's strategy of Hamas meets the front's strategy of Iran, okay? The organizing rationale of these two strategies is very similar, and the Palestinian arena is another front in the Iranian equation or the Iranian strategy, and the Palestinian players, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas, are another proxies in their proxies apparatus, which is very elaborated, okay? Very well developed.
Yeah, it's a very complicated system. This is very clear. Now, the seniors of the Israeli defense system are, of course, observing the situation and deciding. I mean, there is a toolbox, and the question is, what is the idea, the Israeli IDF, Israel, able to do when trying to cope with this very complicated situation? You just discussed, the Hezbollah from north. We have Iran. We have very sensitive situation. On the one hand, I hear, there are many voices from the government trying to compare what is happening now to 2002. Of course, there's no even ground to comparison because this is a very different situation from where we were back in 2002 before Tzahal went on the operation of Protective Shield. What is in the toolbox? How can Israel react to what is happening now without reaching chaos? What do you think?
This is the $1 million question, okay? But the main problem is that we have to understand that there is any prospect or strategic prospect for using force, military force, by launching a broad military operation without having the political envelope, okay? Without having the political aim or objective that you want to reach to. Because at the end of the day, the military force or the military operation is a platform, is a tool, is a vehicle which is supposed to be used in order to facilitate, in order to realize the political objective.
Strategic objectives, yeah.
Yes.
What is the strategy?
The political, not in the sense of the partisan political system, but political from
policy,
strategic policy point of view. And the problem is that the Israeli government, although you have mentioned some ministers have a very clear ideology, and in a sense they are also, in my eyes at least, sort of chaos agents, okay? And they want to realize their ideology, which is at the end of the day to realize Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank, be it the entire West Bank or
pushing for an operation. Yeah, I mean, their goal is very clear.
Therefore, in their eyes, pushing for military operation and launching military operation, this is something, or this is a vehicle that will enable them to realize their strategy, to realize their goals, because they will weaken the Palestinian Authority, because they will create a sort of friction that will, at the end of the day, will bring the Palestinians to the understanding, according to their views, their understanding, okay? It will bring the Palestinians to the understanding that they have nothing to do and they have to actually to surround, okay? It's all the
The
idea
reality
of,
is a lot more complex than this.
defeating the Palestinians. But this is not the voice that was heard from the government as a whole, okay? It is not the decision of the government as a whole.
Of course.
But unfortunately, there is no other decision of the government as a whole.
We hear actually very much their voices, the very extreme voices to the right, but the moderate ones are not very much heard. And we're just about to, sorry.
It's not necessarily a question of moderation. It is good enough from the strategic point of view, to my understanding. It doesn't matter what I think about it from the personal point of view, but it is necessary that there will be a decision. If the decision of the government will be to gain or to realize the Israeli sovereignty over the Gaza, over the West Bank or sea areas, so okay, they have the legitimacy, okay, as an elected government to make such a decision. This is their political goal, and they are using the military tool, among other tools, okay, in order to promote their political goal. But in my view, this is a wrong political goal, okay? But it is a political goal. But they don't have such a political goal, or at least they didn't declare about such a political goal. So all the idea of military operation is something that is realized in a sort of a vacuum, okay?
The decision not to make a decision.
Yeah, so what will be at the end of the day? We will launch a broader military operation, a heavier military operation in the area of Jenin. And we are able to do that, and I think that we are in our way to there. This is the destination, okay?
The question is what will be the implication? Will we receive rockets from north after? This is the new quality of what we're experiencing, I think, this year.
We will be there in Jenin area 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. We will clean the area, okay? We will arrest the terrorists and we will kill terrorists and we will destroy the terror infrastructure. Okay, what then? If the Palestinian Authority is not able to return to control effectively Jenin area, there is nobody else that can enter to our shoes. So we have two options. The first option is to remain there in Jenin, okay, as long as there is no other option or other player instead of us. That means that we are actually renewing the military governance in the West Bank or in Jenin area, okay? And this is in the optimistic scenario that everything will remain concentrated in Jenin area, and there will not be a spillover to the other districts of the Gaza Strip, of the
West Bank. Which is, of course, a scenario.
Yes. The other option is that we will finish the operation, okay, we will clean the area, and then we will withdraw, we'll go out. There is no vacuum, okay? If we are not there, if the Palestinian Authority is not there,
Hamas will be there.
So the terror organization will be there once again. And then what? We will come to another operation. And we will find ourselves in a sort of an attrition war. And by the way, this is exactly what Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad want. Backed,
of course,
and
a vacuum
by the Iranians. This is the idea. To drag Israel to a very long, exhausting attrition war that will enable, at the end of the day, the Palestinians, together with the Iranians, with some other regional player, to attack Israel.
To unite, to unite the
tired, okay, weak, and so on and so forth.
Kobi, we discussed until now the Palestinian side and especially the side of terror organizations and how can Israel react. What is in the toolbox of Israel to do with regards to this? We need to discuss a very important player that is deciding a lot, I think, what is happening on the ground right now, which is, of course, the Jewish settler terror that was defined by the chief of IDF and chief of police, chief of intelligence force as a nationalistic terror. Jewish terror. Jews storming into Palestinian houses, villages, burning cars, even pointing guns in front of innocent people. My question is, what can you tell us about these groups of? I'm not sure they're only youth. I know that there are also older people that are participating in this kind of demonstrations, of riots, pogroms. I have no other words to describe what is happening there. Where do they come from? How do they get in ammunition? Are there also soldiers among these groups? Who's assisting them? What is the relations between the IDF and these groups that are causing a lot of damage right now? Because I add also to this question the fact that the IDF is diverting also soldiers to these areas of conflicts between Jews and Palestinians to prevent violence, while they're actually needed somewhere else. But because of the situation right now that is very sensitive in the West Bank, soldiers are being diverted. So the question is, it's definitely not a good situation. What can the IDF do now with regards to this?
It's not only not a good situation. This is a very worrying situation.
Of course.
And we have to understand that
dangerous.
These events are not marginal events anymore. Okay, these events actually are backed by politicians, the radical wing of this coalition. They are backed by this politician in a very direct manner, and they are backed by other politicians in indirect manner when the other politicians remain silent.
Ministers,
when they don't condemn it roughly and very clearly. Okay, this can be understood as a sort of a code.
Support,
yes,
they're giving them back, of course.
They have the permission to do things like that. Now, the problem is much more complicated with regard to the IDF because all the constabulary missions that the IDF has for more than 5 decades, okay, in the West Bank, actually influence the building force processes of the IDF, and we can see it in the very special units that we have in the West Bank, and the composition or the way that these units are manned. And we have soldiers that serve in these units on a daily basis in a very high level of friction, that live in the settlements in the West Bank. And they are not only soldiers in these forces, in these battalions or brigades, they are also residents of this area. They live there, their families are there. They live the sense of risk and fear in the most personal possible level, okay? And they are very affected by the population and by the social groups that they are part of in the West Bank. So they have difficulties in differentiating between their home, which might be, by the way, 1 kilometer from the base that they serve, okay? They have severe difficulties to differentiate between their personal life and their professional military life. And if they are not involved directly in the riots that you have mentioned, then they are in the very close environment of these riots, and they have some severe difficulties to intervene and to prevent their neighbors, their friends, and sometimes even their family, okay, from doing what they do.
We heard about soldiers that were bystanders to the events and did not prevent the violence.
Small numbers of soldiers that were even arrested, okay, and they are under interrogation now.
Yes.
And I think that we should not be surprised in this regard after understanding what the circumstances, as I'm trying to explain.
Surprised now, but maybe there's a new quality that I think we've not seen until now. Is it right to say?
Yes, because as I told you before, with regard to the Palestinian terrorism, okay, there is a point where the quantity becomes to be a quality, okay? Because when we have a lot of such events, when we have many Jews or Israelis that participate in these riots,
Yeah,
okay,
they create a wave.
then we are talking about quantities, big quantities of people who participate, big quantities of event, big quantities of damages and casualties, and then it becomes to be quantity, okay, quality.
Yeah.
And I think that the statement that was made by the
heads
chief,
of
chief
defense
general
system.
of staff, yes, the military, the police, and the general security services. It is not less than a very lighting red or a red light, okay,
Yes.
for the Israeli government and mainly for the Israeli public. And I think that we have to understand that you cannot differentiate between the enforcement of law and order or the rule of law in the West Bank and in the state of Israel. At the end of the day, if you are not enforcing law and order in the West Bank, you will not be able to enforce law and order inside the state of Israel.
Exactly.
If you will be tolerate to such violence in the West Bank, you will be tolerate to similar violence inside the state of Israel. And the idea that we can differentiate between what is happening there and what is happening here is something which is illusional, I think, and very dangerous to think in this manner. And I think that we are not only on a very slippery slope, we are
already there. Yes. Yeah, and then I have to quote the Americans just said a few days ago, when the backyard is burning, don't expect also on an international level, don't expect processes to move forward when the backyard is burning.
And we are endangering many things, beginning with the new architecture, the new regional architecture that we worked pretty hard, and this is not less than a very significant and essential strategic achievement that we have reached to, and we are endangering now this new architecture, and we are endangering the special relations and the most essential strategic asset that we have, the special relations with the United States. We are endangering our position in the international system, and we are endangering our society and our, I would say, civil-military relations in Israel, because if we think that the tensions between the settlers and the IDF in the West Bank
is only backyard.
Will remain there in the backyard and will not affect civil-military relations inside the state of Israel, we are totally wrong.
I fully agree.
And I think that at the end of the day, the strategic tag price becomes to be very high and dangerous, and we have to recalculate our steps and our strategy there.
Professor Kobi Michael, thank you so much for your analysis, this important analysis to this alarming situation, which I really hope that we won't see further escalation to what is happening. And I'm trying to be optimistic. Let's hope it works.
Yes.
Toda rabba. Thank you very much. Kobi, thank you for our listeners and viewers, and see you in the next program. Goodbye.